Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, Committee of 70 followers and Studio C70 visitors. Today, my name is Clarissa Griebel. I'm Director of Advancement for the Committee of 70. Today, I'm here with Elizabeth Vale, one of our board members. Elizabeth, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Thank you, Clarissa. It's a great pleasure to be here. So I'm a board member of the Committee of 70, which is really how I'm here with you. I'm also a board member of the Broad Street Ministry, which I will talk a little bit about. And in fact, we're here to talk about that as well, because it is relevant to today in particular in voting. I am from Haverford, PA. Actually, I've lived here all my life. And I've had really two sort of parallel careers, one in finance. I spent a lot of years at Morgan Stanley in asset management. And at the same time, I have always been very active in political campaigns as a volunteer, really. I actually worked at the Senate once for John Hines, and then I worked for candidates such as Ed Rendell and Bill Bradley when he ran for president. I then worked in the Obama White House. I was the business liaison at the very beginning for several years for President Obama. From 09, really the beginning of 09. Then I was at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau with Elizabeth Warren, and then as senior advisor on her first Senate race. So a lot of disparate races, but I'm a real political animal.
That's wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit about Broad Street Ministries and their mission?
Sure. So Broad Street Ministry is a fabulous organization. As I said, I'm on their board. I've been on their board for about 6 years. We are located right pretty much across the street from the Kimmel Center and just a little bit south, but basically in the same block. So right in the middle of Philadelphia. The address, just in case anyone wants to volunteer, which we'd love, is 315 South Broad Street. But again, it's right in the middle of the heart of Philadelphia, pretty much across the street from the Kimmel Center. So we have a lot of services for Philadelphia's unhoused, and they range really a broad gamut of services. I think the one that we're best known for, and frankly, I think should be most known for, is we serve lunch to the unhoused every Monday through Friday. Our doors open at 11:30 in the morning. They close at 1:30 for that lunch service. We are located in a former Presbyterian church, beautiful building, big building, and lunch is served on the second floor. And we typically serve up to 400, 450 people. We never turn anyone away. It's actually a fabulous lunch. We get most of our food from Carversville Farm. So it's actually a beautiful lunch. And I just have to say one amazing thing. In the main 2 years of COVID, the city asked us to help feed the unhoused. And we, Broad Street Ministry, served over 800,000 meals in those 2 years. So over 800,000 meals, almost a number you can't get your head around. We also have a number of other services, and we'll talk today about one in particular, or two actually. One is that we distribute mail to our unhoused guests, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, they can secure identification documents, which is very important. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a clothing closet. We distribute clothes, wonderful clothes to them. And we also have menders who come in and sew anything they need sewn. We distribute personal care products, a lot of them. Soaps, and shampoos, etc. And then we do have medical services as well. So I could go on and on. We have a great website. So look at our website if you want detail, broadstreetministry.org.
It's such good and important work.
Thank you.
Could you elaborate on how Broad Street Ministry becomes the only address on file for the unhoused community?
Sure. So, many people who are unhoused, in fact, most people who are unhoused, have limited resources. Then that includes a stable, safe place to receive mail. So most stabilizing resources, like benefits, require a mailing address to be eligible, as you know. I mean, if you don't have a mail address, it's almost like you don't exist in the system. And so our guests, we call them our guests, and they are our guests, can come in to Broad Street Ministry Monday through Friday, anytime between noon and 2 p.m. And they sign up to get their mail sent here. And believe it or not, we have 4,750 people with active mailboxes at Broad Street Ministry. Again, 4,750 people have active mailboxes at Broad Street Ministry. And by the way, there's great volunteering opportunities, not only to help serve the meals, we have waiters and busboys, et cetera. You can sign up on our website, but you can also volunteer to distribute the mail. And it's really a lot of fun, which I've done. So that is that.
So also, how does Broad Street Ministries support the unhoused community in terms of securing identification documents and essentials paperwork?
Yeah, so that's another very important service that we're very happy to provide for the unhoused. There's several ways that we address securing IDs, identification documents. The most obvious one, of course, is having a mailing address, which I mentioned, which allows for these documents to be accessed. The other is that we support guests who are eligible for free identification and Pennsylvania birth certificates by applying for them on their behalf. And as a side note, in order to access both of these documents for free, you do need a social worker or an agency like Broad Street Ministry to verify your eligibility. We pay for the Pennsylvania identification of guests who don't qualify for a free one. You have to be new to Pennsylvania and homeless in order to receive a free Pennsylvania ID. And lastly, we partner with agencies like Homeless Advocacy Project, which support guests who need out-of-state birth certificates.
Wonderful. It's got to be hard for some people to find their birth certificates after a long period of time.
I mean, frankly, I tried to get mine the other day and it was not easy. My original, now I'm old, of course, it was from Kentucky, but anyway, more than you need to know, but it's not easy, and we're thrilled to help these guests.
What are the implications for voting when unhoused individuals use Broad Street Ministries as their address? And how does Broad Street Ministries facilitate their participation in the democratic process?
Wonderful question. So Broad Street, as I mentioned, is as I mentioned, it's at 315 South Broad, which is right across really from the Kimmel Center, as I've said. But we're also, which means we're located literally around the corner from our local polling place. So by offering, and we offer nonpartisan, I promise it is nonpartisan educational support around civic engagement throughout the year to guests who are registered and are prepared to vote. We also offer voter registration stations and mail those registrations out for our guests. So you can register at Broad Street Ministry, and we will make sure that they get that registration approved. Right now, if you come into Broad Street, you can stop at our voter registration table and see how we actually do that, and learn who's on the ballot. And we can answer questions about what is on the ballot, who is on the ballot, and also our guests can receive a map to our local polling place. On election day, we actually have what we call guest ambassadors ready to walk guests to the address of the polls without going in, of course, but they walk them to the poll in case they need some sort of guidance. And we find these services are especially impactful for guests who are new to voting, guests who have reading comprehension support needs, and others who do have thought. Some people have thought and learning differences. We're going over the process of voting a couple of different times, just helps them feel prepared. And frankly, I do it myself at my poll. I always stand outside and study what's going on in there. So I think it's just a really nice service we should have really for everybody.
How many people usually volunteer to accompany guests to the polls?
Well, we can have really, we can tap as many as we need, honestly. We have wonderful volunteers. So we have a database of hundreds of volunteers. So it really depends on how many we think will vote.
Are there any legal or regulatory obstacles that unhoused individuals encounter when using Broad Street Ministries as our address for official purposes?
Yeah, that is a great question.
These challenges?
That's a great question. So we've not seen any challenges to date, other than the necessity of having a valid Pennsylvania ID, as I said, upon their first time voting at a new polling place. And some of our guests have had a hard time holding on to these important documents, but we're very helpful in maintaining them. So, you really do need to have a valid Pennsylvania ID, which is why we're very happy to help manage that process.
Can you share any success stories or examples of how Broad Street Ministries assistance has positively impacted the lives of unhoused individuals?
So actually, this really kind of answers the question you just had about how many voting ambassadors we have, volunteers. And we actually hire guests to be voting ambassadors. One of the current ones was someone who had no address or ID or housing the first time she came into us. So it really understands the issues. I mean, as you know, if you've been in that situation, you're particularly empathetic and understand how important it is, and actually how easy it is to help someone who is still there in that situation. So we've worked with this young woman for several years. We got her an ID. We supported her in building a community as she worked her way through the shelter system. And she just, she describes at the time getting so overwhelmed the first time she tried to vote that she left without completing her vote, which is really endearing and a great example of why this is a very good service. So she processed that experience with our mail staff. She talked about it and volunteers, and she made plans for the next election. And now she's an expert, in fact, with navigating the system. And she helps others learn about the whole process from registration to what's on the ballot, to what to expect when you go into the booth, and how to get to the voting place. So she will be with us, or she is with us today on election day, escorting guests to the polls, and she feels very prepared to help them vote in this election.
That's very heartwarming. Does Broad Street Ministries ensure that its services are accessible to as many unhoused individuals as possible who may need to use the address for various purposes?
Yeah, no, we do not have any caps on any of our services, which is really remarkable. When I first got on the board, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, as I said, 40, almost 5,000 people have active mailboxes, and no, we have no caps on our services. And similarly with, just as I mentioned, the food, the lunch service that we have for our guests, we never turn anyone away. And when I first, this is a digression, but when I first went to volunteer, which is so much fun, by the way, we would love volunteers to come, easy to sign up. I went to look at the kitchen and I just couldn't believe it. It is very modest and small, actually. But, it's as if you had a dinner party and you were expecting 10 and 30 people came and you're like, okay, I have no problem. We can feed them. Sometimes we have 350, sometimes we have 450. I think we've gotten close to 500 guests who just come. So no, there's no cap on any of our services. We will never turn anyone away. And our mail in particular has seen a huge jump in utilization since the pandemic, and we are prepared to continue to expand as needs grow.
How big is that mail room? That sounds like a lot of mailboxes.
Yeah, well, you have to come visit, okay? And anybody who wants to, I would absolutely love to meet you there, and or our staff is just fabulous, and our guests are so much fun. And by the way, we have great music that we dance around to at in the lunch service, which is up in the main sort of former sacristy of what was formerly a Presbyterian church. Anyway, the mail room. So you come in the front door on Broad Street, and you go down a sort of half a level, and there's a big room, which has a lot of basically all of our services, except the clothing and the personal care products, which are upstairs. But that's where the mail service is, and it's one whole side of the wall. And what we have is, file drawers by alphabet. So they're alphabetized. And for example, you would come in as a guest, and there are many volunteers, probably 8 volunteers there every day from noon to 2, Monday to Friday. And you would give them your ID and say, my name is so-and-so, or here's my ID. And then they would go and find your file behind them. And the mail has been filed already that day. And so they just look in your file, in the file drawer by your, alphabetized by your last name, and give you your mail for the day. It's a wonderful thing.
That's awesome. Are there any ongoing advocacy efforts or collaborations with local government agencies to improve the official recognition of Broad Street Ministries as a valid address for the unhoused population?
Yeah, that was a concern. Would we have any issues? And we have not had any issues with the legitimacy of our address. Obviously, people would know about it and they would have investigated it. 5,000 people getting their mail there, you can't exactly do that without being legitimate. To my knowledge, we are the very first entity that has been allowed to operate a prepaid contract for IDs with PennDOT. So you can sign up right there next to the mail distribution for your ID, which we enable, which we manage. The United States Post Office and other major mail carriers all deliver to our address based on our schedule, which is great, very efficiently. Other city departments also partner with us on different initiatives because they're aware of our population and our unique position in supporting this population.
What more could be done? to address the broader issues of homelessness and address related challenges faced by the unhoused community. Elizabeth.
Thank you for asking that. It's a wonderful thing to contemplate and to try and achieve. A couple of things. One would be wonderful if we could make all IDs, all identification material, free to the unhoused. If we could expand affordable housing efforts, of course, and access to low barrier beds for folks not ready for longer term housing. Very important in the cold and in the heat, particularly, which we have both in the course of the year. Also to increase mental health support and access, expand mental health support and access, and also to expand funding really for basic needs benefits.
This is such an important community that deserves to be supported. Where can somebody volunteer?
So please go to our websites. In fact, I'm going to make sure you come, Clarissa. It is so much fun. I can't tell you. My husband and I go almost every week, and we have so much fun, truly. Anyway, go to our website, broadstreetministry.org. It's a beautiful website, and it's quite easy to navigate. You will see, you can just click on volunteer, and you can volunteer, as I said, for helping serve the meals. By the way, every guest is seated at a table with a tablecloth. There's silver, stainless steel, but there's real, it's not like plastic forks and knives. It's real cutlery, real plate. A volunteer serves lunch to these lovely, guests. And so it's a lot of fun, but we need 5 waiters, and usually 5 or 7 waiters and 5 or 7 busboys every lunch. So yes, you can sign up there. You can also sign up on the website to distribute the mail, as I said, which is also easy and quite fun, and just 12 to 2, as I said, Monday to Friday. You can volunteer at the personal care station. You can volunteer at the clothing distribution as well.
Thanks so much for joining us today and for letting us know about this critical organization that provides critical services to the unhoused community. We're so grateful for all that you do for our community and for the Committee of 70. I hope you have a wonderful day. And
thank you.
Please, everyone out there, consider volunteering.
Please do. And by the way, I'm about to go vote. So
go
everybody
vote too.
Thanks, Clarissa.
See you later.
Thanks
have a great day.
All you do. All righty. Bye-bye.